I'm often asked what's the sharpest you can possibly get a knife. I'm kind of afraid of it. And the answer to that is, it depends. If sharp is the ability to cut something, it kind of depends on what that something is. Oh, that did it. However, what if we don't care about edge damage? We push the steel to its limits, and we just make the sharpest thing humanly possible. Is this a dumb idea? Absolutely. Ooh. But let me show you why it's one of the coolest things you could ever do with a knife. Some problems associated with insane sharpness. We damaged the apex on a cardboard tube. And why you can't buy one already this sharp from the factory.
Are these all going to return for warranty?
My journey to make the sharpest knife I've ever made starts with a 1084 steel test blade I made for one of my last videos. And the first order of business is to thin this blade out. So how thin are we going? Well, we're actually going to be doing a 0 grind here, which means no secondary bevel. So the main grind here is called the primary grind, and the actual sharpened bevel here is called the secondary. We're going ultimate thinness here, just to see what happens. So we're going to grind this secondary bevel out completely so that there's only one continuous bevel from the spine of the knife all the way down to the cutting edge. This would technically be called a 0 grind. And before I get asked a million questions, this poster is from the Knafs website. This isn't a sponsored video or anything, I just thought that these were pretty cool and that's where you can get them. Most of you will probably know this, but to recap from past videos, thin stuff passes through other stuff easier than thick stuff does. So that means that sharpness is thinness. The thinner something is, the sharper it becomes, but only to a point, pun intended. If our blade is too thin, it may not have the structural integrity in order to remain stable. So after grinding the edge to 0 on both the grinder and finishing it off by hand, meaning there's no secondary bevel, the apex should have been super sharp, but it wasn't. This is kind of weird. So I'm fairly certain I'm apexed, but I'm not sure because it's not really forming a burr at this geometry. At least I can't see one and I can't feel one. I think like the whole edge is becoming a burr. And it's just not, like it's sharp, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't feel as sharp as I thought it would. And boom, here's what that apex looks like. It seems the problem is the apex has become so thin we've basically formed one continuous burr. This means that the apex is too thin to support itself even on the sharpening stone while sharpening. And to show you what I mean, this is that same burr with a Sharpie cap simply resting along the apex. Hopefully you can see how just the weight of the cap itself is enough to flex the apex out of the way. We basically have 0 apex stability. Now I tried different stones and techniques and just couldn't get this super thin apex to be stable enough to cut anything. And see, we damaged the apex on a cardboard tube. That's what a piece of cardboard did to this. So the angle here relative to centerline is approximately 3 degrees. Obviously way too thin, but what if we could stabilize this ultra thin apex with a very appropriately named micro bevel? So I very gently cut in a microscopic secondary bevel on a Sharpton Glassstone 1000 and finished it off on a Korematsu 5000 and 1 1/10 micron strop. And the micro bevel is so small that I can't see it with my naked eye. This is some 6 micron diamond emulsion for comparison. Now the end result here, even for me, was quite surprising. This is probably the sharpest knife I've ever sharpened. I think a lot of people seem to think that these more delicate tasks are more apex sharp dependent, but no, they are highly geometry dependent. We want the apex to do the splitting of the material, not the thickness of the bevel. Sure, we can cut paper, but can we cut other stuff, like a stack of 9-ounce leather, for instance? Not enough leather for you? How about more? I shared a short video of this, and the #1 request in that video was, can you do it flat ways? I think that way is actually a little easier. Honestly, I'm not really sure how to demonstrate the cutting ability of this knife here. I mean, 9-ounce fetch tan leather cutting cleanly in the air with a tiny little blade like this is absolutely insane. This is something that like regular knives just can't really do that well. This is the Knafs Speedster. Like it gets started, but it just won't continue going through it. Whereas this, it's like you're cutting birthday cake. The behind the edge thickness here was very difficult to measure, trying to find the exact point to measure at, but I think it's somewhere around the 1/1000th of an inch mark, maybe even slightly less. To put this into perspective, a normal knife is going to be about 20 thousandths, or over 20 times thicker. A razor blade is also about 20 thousandths thick and about 6 thousandths behind the micro bevel, and a sheet of paper is about 2 thousandths. So the edge here is about half the width of a sheet of paper. I mean, the cutting ability of this knife is quite insane. So why can't we buy knives to cut like this? Well, I think that this brings up a very good point in the knife world, because while at Blade Show West, I got a chance to hang out with Ben Peterson over at the Knafs shop in Salt Lake City, Utah, where they're in the middle of manufacturing their own in-house knives for the first time. Now, I showed this video to Ben and asked his thoughts on why this probably could be brought to the mass market.
Interesting. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. There's a knife, the Zero Tolerance 777. I don't know if you're familiar with the controversy on this. It's an old controversy from like 10 years ago. But basically Zero Tolerance came out with this knife that was just remarkable. And it wasn't manufacturable at scale. Like they could make onesie, twosies of them. I think they came out with a couple hundred. They took pre-orders like $10 down payments or something on hundreds of these, like probably 700-800 or something. They were only able to make like 100 to 150. My numbers might be off, but the principle was they had created something so cool that was not manufacturable and able to take to market. That's what you've done here. It's a really cool knife. It's functional for really tight slicing, but it's not manufacturable in the sense that you're going to get all of them back from warranty. And it's going to, if you were to manufacture that, it would destroy your business in a way that is non-functional.
Now I already know that this is going to be a controversial take among many of you out there. I don't want to get into knife making business economics in this video. So to clarify, you can buy a top fuel dragster. You're going to have to pay a lot of money for it. You're probably going to have to sign a waiver or two, and if you crash it, there's no refunds. In the same way, there are knife makers out there who will make you a knife ground to sub 1/1000th of an inch behind the edge, but I can pretty much guarantee you that they're not gonna warranty it. Yeah, hey, about that warranty. Yeah, there may be a small market out there for top fuel dragsters, but there's a reason there's not a single company trying to sell them to every household in America. So you're saying they have to be completely rebuilt after just one cut? Sure, they're fun while they last, but they're just not practical for anything other than a quarter mile at a time.
I live my life a quarter mile at a time.
To give you some real life context here, I ground this S7 tool steel blade that I made a while back, one of the toughest steels that you can buy, to about 7 thousandths behind the edge, till I ran out of belts anyway. And even at 7 thousandths behind the edge with the increased leverage, this thing cuts very well. This would be good geometry and sharpness for a chef's knife, but maybe not an outdoors knife like this knife was originally designed. I mean, sure, it's super fun for the delicate stuff like these cardboard tubes and leather. After a couple of light taps in some softwood, there was some significant edge damage. Ooh. Yep, that did it. Now, you may say that this is not what it's designed for, and you would be right. However, there's a percentage of people out there who will buy your stuff and do things they aren't supposed to with it. Or maybe you're just cutting a piece of cardboard and accidentally run the edge into a staple. Oh, that actually did way more damage than I thought. It may not look it, but this edge is toast. The only way to restore this to its original state is to put it back on the grinder and do a complete regrind. We could sharpen this out, but that would thicken the edge up considerably and basically turn it back into a regular knife, which would completely negate the reason we made this knife in the first place. Now, whether you do this on purpose or your knife coming into contact with something it wasn't supposed to is by accident, and that happens every day, The thinner / sharper it is, the more likely it will sustain damage beyond an easy fix. A knife that sustains damage on the secondary bevel at 15 thousandths behind the edge is easily sharpened out. But that same damage on our ridiculously thin knife here would require a complete regrind in order to fix, or maybe even a complete blade shape change after coming into contact with the staple while cutting open a box. Yes, it's fun, it's just not practical.
For those 10 seconds or less, I'm free.
So you're saying they only last one cut?